All right, so let's do a little review. First of all, you've calculated your BMR. You took your BMR and multiplied that by your activity level, which gave you your TDEE. You then took your TDEE and either added calories to it, subtracted calories to that, or kept the calories as is if your goal was maintenance. Now, how do you take that information and calculate your macros or your percentages? Well, let's start with protein. When calculating your protein, the recommended amount has quite a variance. So normally what it is it's per pound of body weight. And some people go, it's 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight, all the way up to 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. Now that really depends on your goal. For the most part, most of us can sort of get away with the 0.8 grams of protein to 1 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So if I'm 150 pounds, I would be aiming to have 150 grams of protein per day. If you are one of those people who doesn't normally eat that much protein, and you think, well, why on earth would I be eating so much protein? Protein is really great for maintaining muscle, for building muscle, and it actually helps to keep you full a lot longer than sometimes just carbohydrates. Now, the next macronutrient that we're going to look at in calculating is your fats. Now, fats often get a bad rap. Oh, fat makes you fat. Well, no, fats are really important for your body. They help with a lot of functions involving your nervous system. They also help to absorb certain nutrients in your body. So I actually just learned that sometimes certain supplements actually have small amounts of fat in them because it actually helps your body with absorbing them. Fat is one of those other macros that helps to keep you full a lot longer. Next step is to calculate your fat. Now, the general rule for calculating your fat macros is 0.3 to 0.5, or in some cases 0.6 grams of fat per pound of body weight. So if I'm using myself as an example, I would take my body weight, which is 150 pounds, and I would multiply that by 0.14. That is going to give me 60. So I should be aiming to have at least 60 grams of fat every day. Now, the range of 0.3 to 0.5 or 0.6 depends on your goals. It depends on your body type. Some people are more susceptible to craving things that are fattier, and that's one of those things that you need to take in consideration and know yourself. Do you prefer to have a lot more peanut butter? Do you prefer to have more carbs? If you're starting out calculating your macros, start with your preferences in mind. If you're definitely someone who'd rather have some extra peanut butter, then calculate on the higher side, 0.4 or 0.5. You can even do things like 0.45 grams times your body weight. And that will now give you your protein and your fat macros. The last one we have left to do is our carbohydrates. Your remaining macros are going to be left over for your carbohydrates. So let me do a little rundown for you. Let me get my calculator out. And let's do this based on, I'm just going to make up some numbers. So let's pretend that my goal is to eat 2,000 calories a day and I weigh 150 pounds. So let's start with my protein. I know that I'm going to have 150, you see that? Yeah. I'm gonna have 150 grams of protein per day. So to figure out how many calories that is, I'm going to multiply that by 4 because 1 gram of protein is equal to 4 calories. So that gives me 600. I should write this down somewhere. Let's see how my mental math is. All right, so I've got 600 calories of my 2,000 that are going to be used for protein. Now, my fat macros. So once again, I'm taking my body weight number. We just did this a second ago. 150, and I'm gonna go for 0.4 grams because I'm kind of right in the middle. I like things sweet, but I also like salty things and chips and things that are probably not so good for me, but would be considered fatty. So I'm taking my body weight in pounds and I'm multiplying that by 0.4. That gives me 60. Now, if you remember, that 1 gram of fat is equal to 9 calories. So I'm going to take this 60 and multiply it by 9, and that is going to give me 540. So I've got 540 calories that are going to be used for fat. And I have 600 calories that are going to be used for protein. That gives me a grand total of 1,140. And like I said, my goal was to eat 2,000 calories a day. So I'm going to do this a little backwards, and I'm going to go minus 2,000, and I'm just going to get rid of that subtraction sign. So 860 calories. That is how many calories I have left over for my goal of reaching 2,000 calories. And this 860, if I divide this by 4, because 1 gram of carbohydrates is equal to 4 calories, this will give me the number of grams of carbs I should be consuming a day. So I'm going to divide that by 4. That gives me 215 grams of carbohydrates. So my split would be 215 grams of carbohydrates, 60 grams of fat, and 150 grams of protein. Now, you can definitely play with the actual percentages. You might say, you know what, I actually want a lot more fat in my diet, so I'm going to take my body weight and multiply that by 0.6 grams. You might say, I don't need that much protein because I'm not really trying to build too much muscle right now, so maybe I'm happy with 0.9 or 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So it's really up to you how you want to calculate your macros, but that is essentially the basic way to do it. You will need to play with the numbers. You will need to find what works for you and works for your body, and every one will be different. Some percentages work really well for one person and don't well work for another. And that's one of the reasons why I don't always share my macros. Like what I showed you, those are not my macros, because that isn't necessarily what works for me, even though that's a very common ratio. So play with your macros, try them out. And when I do mean try them out, I don't mean for a day, I don't mean for a week. Give yourselves 2, maybe even 3 weeks. Give yourself time and your body time for it to adjust, to actually have the potential and opportunity to make progress. And then you can reassess from there. But doing things like taking your measurements before you actually start your macros or change your macros is important, as well as if you wanted to weigh yourself on the scale. But keep in mind, that's one of those things where it's not necessarily going to be the best way for you to check your progress. There are daily fluctuations depending on your sodium levels, depending on how much you've eaten, depending if you got to the bathroom. So there's lots of things to consider if you're just going to be using the scale. And keep in mind too, you shouldn't just weigh yourself one day a week and then say, oh my gosh, well, I gained 5 pounds. Within one day, I fluctuate easily 5 pounds. So if you really are wanting to track your weight using the scale, I would do it in the morning and at night and write it down and do it every day. And then you kind of have a general idea of what your weight is despite fluctuations. Because I know even if I've ate really clean all week, if I go out for dinner and have one meal, my weight will definitely be higher in the morning following that meal, despite only having one meal out and not it necessarily having gone over my calories by an exorbitant amount. So give your body time to adjust to things and try to track in as many ways as possible, including photos, measurements, and the scale if you choose to. So what I'm going to do is after I'm done talking, I'm going to put a little slide in here of running through an example with how someone could actually start with calculating not only their BMR, their TDE, their calories, and their macro breakdown. So right from the beginning, I will do a little write-up for you right after this, so you can actually see how to do it and have those steps to refer to when you are doing your own calculations. Now, I do just want to end with one little note, and that is for many of you who are trying to lose weight, you need to keep in mind that you cannot target fat loss. You can't say, okay, well, I'm going to lose weight just in my stomach area. It doesn't work that way. Your body gains weight and loses weight from wherever it darn well pleases. Personally, I always gain weight in my butt and legs first, and that's also where I lose weight first. So my stomach area is pretty much the last place for me to lose fat. So for me to be really lean and to have like a lot of ab definition, I'm gonna pretty much have zero fat like anywhere else on my body. And that's not necessarily a sacrifice I'm willing to make. But you have to keep that in mind, because there's not going to be a secret to say, oh my gosh, all of a sudden now I have abs. It doesn't work that way. Fat loss can't be targeted. It's just where your body chooses to magically make it disappear from. Not magic, being in a deficit, eating well, exercise, all that. And also, there are no secret foods that you should be eating. It's not going to say, oh, well, if you eat this, you're going to get abs and look really awesome and all that. It doesn't work that way. You need to find out what works for your body. A lot of people start counting their calories or their macros and they're saying, oh, well, I'm not eating this, this, and this. Well, unless there's a reason for you not to be eating, like, okay, it causes me to bloat. It reacts really poorly with my stomach and gives me indigestion. It gives me heartburn. Causes my face to have rashes and breakout. Those are great reasons not to eat something. But if you choose not to eat something because you see someone on Instagram or some celebrity isn't eating something, that is not necessarily going to have the same benefit for you that it does for them. So eat everything in moderation. Try to eat whole things. Try to eat things that aren't going to be as packaged or have less packaging. More things that you're putting together yourselves, that you know where it's come from, what's in it, where you can read the ingredients inside. But keep in mind that, eating the way someone else eats isn't going to make you look like them. You need to eat for you, for your body, and for your activity level.